So notebook assets, which the goals of it are to simplify redistribution of notebooks with external data. We would like to keep binary data as binary because it's more efficient. And then it can actually provide some functionality so we can start doing data reuse inside the notebook itself. That's more of a long-term stretch goal, but nonetheless, it is enabled once we start doing this. So for 14, what do we get? So 14 is basically going to revolve around programmatic access. So how can I modify the asset collection for a notebook? How can I enumerate them? And how can I work with them? And this talk is effectively the documentation for 14. All of this is, of course, in the experimental context. It is alpha-like at the moment. So some things will change. I already know some things will change. And I can't guarantee that everything that you do today will continue to work going forward, but it is in a working state. So to start off with, the first thing you have to do is add to create an asset. We have asset add, which takes a name and then the data. Asset add is always going to target a notebook. It's just a question of whether or not you are actually specifying a notebook, or is it implied? The important bits are here is that asset add is hold rest. So here's a quick little example. I have some placeholder text here, which I would like to add as an asset. I have given it a name, and when I evaluate, I will get back this asset object. Now, the key bits to know about asset object, it's mostly an opaque type. The keys in it will change at some point, I'm sure, over time, but is effectively enough to be able to use as a handle to some arbitrary data. Think of it as like a promise. I have data somewhere. I would like to get it back at some point in time. For a collection, asset names are required to be unique. That doesn't, and by collection, I mean it's per notebook. If you have multiple notebooks, you can have the same name appear in multiple notebooks. It's just in a collection. It has to be unique. And any attempt to add a new asset on top of a previously existing one will return failed. So now that we have this asset object, what can we do with it? And this is the meat of assets, which is asset value. Given an asset object, I can ask for a particular property of it and it will return its value. This assets are, I don't want to call them strongly typed, but they are not loosely typed. And I'll get to that in a second. The key bits is that if you're curious to know what properties this particular asset supports, you can just ask for its properties, which you'll notice from asset objects, some of these are repeated. Some interesting ones are some metadata created and modified. These are timestamps. You can ask for what formats are available to be able to grab the content of the asset with. And then the default is basically, I don't care, just give me the one that you prefer. So as you can see here, this is a really simple example because strings are always where you start, only supports strings. And then, of course, the default format for strings is just string. So you get that back. But obviously, assets are more useful than just strings. Obviously, a lot of the times in the language, you want to work with expressions. So here's a quick example. I just have 34 to the 78th power. I'm going to add that as an asset. As you can see here, we know that this is an expression. You can see that it supported formats as expression. You can get it back and you get back the evaluated result. But that's not actually what was stored because it's hold rest. You can actually ask for it, supplying a second argument for expression, which will allow you to get it back held so you can actually see the original result. More interestingly, for notebook assets, for a lot of times I think people will use it is I have a bunch of binary data. I want this to be locked into my notebook for me. So just borrowing this waveform from the layout, I'm going to add it because string is a type. File paths are strings. You don't really want to add the file path as an asset. So you wrap it in file and you can add that. So here's my audio. It knows that it's a waveform. And as you can see, my supported formats are bytes and file. So in this case, I'm going to just ask for the bytes, which I can then pass into import byte array. it will figure out what the content type is, which will be a waveform, and I'm going to throw it directly into audio plot. And then I get back my nice fancy plot of the data. It also, file is also one of those. I'm going to do that with an SQLite database. As you see, the front end has no implicit knowledge of what a SQLite database is. So it'll just report that it's an octet stream. But once again, bytes and file are the two choices that you get. Database reference, as far as I recall, only works with files. So when you ask for the file for an asset, it will spin it off into a temporary file inside your temporary directory, and the front end will clean it up when the process terminates. So you don't need to worry about going through and deleting it afterwards. But an important thing to note is that it's read-only. From the front end's perspective, it's read-only. It will not take any changes that you have made and magically percolate it back in. And then there's another specialized accessor called image, which, given a file, we can tell that it's of type image. On Windows, I can import this directly. So I get bytes, file, and image. Image is probably one of the tags that will change, but nonetheless, because the front end supports it natively, I can just ask for the raw boxes, and I will get back an image directly in the front end without having to go off through the kernel to do it. So the key thing that I want to point out with Asset Object is its lifetime. Its design is very much based around being able to add an asset and then use it inside of interfaces without having to do a lot of gymnastics. So it's important to note that because I want assets to be usable inside of dynamic module as instance variables, it means they have to live beyond kernel session or even front end sessions. So asset object is a guarantee. It's basically a handle that you can grab and use a promise to get the data at any point in the future, as long as the notebook is open and the asset exists within the notebook. So here's an example I put together. I did this last week. The asset was created on last Thursday in the afternoon. And it's just a simple string that says hello world. The important bit is that I didn't have to do asset find in order to be able to find it and get an updated object. You can store it and then use it as long as it's still around. So looping back to the rest of the API surface, asset find, it basically does what it says, which is find all the assets for a notebook, or given a name, give me back the asset. So looking back at my demo example here's the string from earlier. And then if you were to do, is this same queue to the thing that I had previously that had better be true. And then you can go through and enumerate all of the assets that are available in this particular notebook. So you can see all the ones that I've added to it since. Asset find, it's pretty straightforward. Next is asset remove. Last of the pillars that are available in 14. It does exactly what it says. Given an asset object, you can call remove, and it will remove it from the notebook's collection. Once you remove it, you cannot go back, and then any existing reference that you had now no longer works. Pretty straightforward. If you were to save it right now, it wouldn't be serialized back to disk. So a quick demo of a simple image preview, or simple only in appearance. So here is this little image previewer I have, and what this is doing is it's a dynamic module. And when it initializes, it goes through, reads in the list, and then it filters all the assets based on MIME type to filter out all of the images. So this is the image that I added earlier. Then using asset add, I can just go through and add. Here's a picture of me. Well, not of me, but it's me at St. Andrews. And so you can add a bunch of images using asset add. And then the labels on the left are a property of file-based assets. So you can actually get the original name that it was added with. And then the preview on the right is using the image tab. So that way it just gives you back the raw boxes. If I were to save this in its current state and reopen it, all of those pictures would be slurped into the notebook, and then you can send it off to others, and they can just open and preview all of these exactly like I am right now.